acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people, whose lands and water we benefit from today. Before we begin, we want you to know that it doesn't matter where you or your ancestors are from, who you love, your gender identity, your theology, your politics, or your immigration status. We welcome all those who are committed to our core principles, our core values, as expressed in our 7 principles. Together we come to this place to share our hopes, dreams, and visions. We seek to build a diverse and inclusive community that honors our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Thank you for being with us this morning. Please consider making a donation with our virtual offering basket if you're able. Your contribution is an important way to support the work that UUCOD does. You can click on a link that you should have already received via constant contact in your email if you're on our listserv, or there'll be another one sent today before, during, or after the service to email. Go ahead and click on that link if you're able. Speaking of being on our email list, if you're not on it or you would like to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us and get added at admin, A-D-M-I-N, at uucod.org. Okay, and now we will begin with ringing our Tibetan bowl to begin our service, and then listen to our music for centering.
Happy New Year, friends, and welcome. I hope that your December holiday and New Year's celebrations were joyful and restorative. Even though it's a new year, we do seem to be back in an old place, returning to better distancing, more isolation, and maybe a little more anxiety about health and safety. I am grateful that we have made the decision to temporarily return to streaming-only worship for a little while, though it does sadden me, and I'm really appreciative of your willingness to support this choice for our community's safety. It will be temporary, and we will come back together in person soon. Meanwhile, we continue to worship and to work, to discern and learn and celebrate together through Zoom and email and even that most ancient of technologies, the telephone. I want to open our service this morning by sharing the inspiration and words of my friend and colleague, the Reverend Tanya Marquez. It is a wonder and a mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of time, in the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe of the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, more loving. May our hearts and mind be open to this offering. I am so glad you are here. Let us worship. Let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now and the mystery that has brought us together. I hope you'll sing along with our opening hymn, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Would you please recite with me our chalice lighting and unison aspiration? May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace and to seek knowledge in freedom. To help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And now I've asked my husband, Ruben Gallardo, to join us for the Biopoc candle lighting. Please join with us. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey toward spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail. And now we'll have our hymn for meditation, Spirit of Life.
Stirrings of compassion. Spirit of love, come to me, come to me.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla a volar, sube la mar, hasta volver la justicia de la vida. Arraígame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
Now for this morning's reading selection chosen by Reverend Riddell are a couple of excerpts from All About Love, New Visions by Bell Hooks. Everywhere we learn that love is important, and yet we are bombarded by its failure. In the realm of the political, among the religious, in our families, and in our romantic lives, we see little indication that love informs decisions, strengthens our understanding of community, or keeps us together. This bleak picture in no way alters the nature of our longing. We still hope that love will prevail. We still believe in love's promise. Communities sustain life, not nuclear families or the couple, and certainly not the rugged individualist. There is no better place to learn the art of loving than in community. M. Scott Peck begins his book, The Different Drum, Community Making and Peace with the Profound Declaration, in and through community lies the salvation of the world. Peck defines community as the coming together of a group of individuals, quote, who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than their masks of composure, and who have developed some significant commitment to, quote, rejoice together, mourn together, end quote, and to, quote, delight in each other and make others' conditions our own, end quote, quote. We are all born into the world of community. Realistically, being part of a loving community does not mean we all not face conflicts, betrayals, negative outcomes from positive actions, or bad things happening to good people. Love allows us to confront these negative realities in a manner that is life-affirming and life-enhancing. Enjoying the benefits of living and loving in community empowers us to meet strangers without fear and to extend to them the gift of openness and recognition. The love we make in community stays with us wherever we go. With this knowledge as our guide, we make any place we go a place where we return to love.
It may seem odd that we're going to have a piece of Christmas music in a service on January 9th, but I want to share with you that we had some technical difficulties leading up to Christmas Eve and weren't able to share this piece with you on Christmas Eve. And I wanted to honor the work of the choir and of Jonathan Fast, who pulled us all together, and make sure to share it with you. It speaks of the wonder of what's possible, the concern and care that grows in a life as it develops in the world, and wondering what will be possible in new life. I think it's very appropriate for the new year. So I hope that you will breathe deeply, sit quietly, and enjoy Winter Night by our choir.
Hush abide, lullaby, blessed be little baby.
Winter night, clear and bright, a weary world is sleeping, and then a cry fills earth and sky, a newborn child is weeping. Hush abide, lullaby, blessed little baby.
Drops of pain flow like rain, till by the tears are falling.
For humankind so frail, unkind, or for your own life's calling.
Hush abide, lullaby, blessed little baby. Holy child, every child, your life will have its season, and each new day your heart may pray for grace, for peace, for reason. Hush abide, lullaby, blessed little baby, blessed little baby, blessed little baby.
This is the time in our service where we share the joys and sorrows of our communities. Because you are all on Zoom and none were emailed to me, I'm going to invite you to take a moment now and in the chat type in, share your joys or your concerns, your hopes, and the things that are in your heart today with each other in the chat. We also know there are joys and sorrows that remain in the silence of our hearts this day. We know there is the joy of seeing each other's face, the joy of hearing each other's voice. In the midst of pandemic, the joy of new life, the joy of beautiful weather. And we know also the sorrow and the pain of the impacts of violence, the impacts of illness, of unease, of anxiety. And we hold all of these in our hearts as we share together today. Will you take a breath with me now? Breathe deeply. And breathe again. Be comfortable in your seat. Even though you're in a familiar place, I invite you to tune it out a little bit and just breathe. Bring your heart and your mind to this place that we build together amongst us, between us. Here we experience the spirit of life in its full form. The joys and sorrows, the pains and anguishes of reality in this world. We carry all of these in our hearts. We see a world around us where fear and anxiety take the place of trust and commitment. We see a world around us where knowledge is derided. where truth is questioned. And we wonder, how shall we respond? How do we face this world? As we breathe deeply together, we know that a piece of the answer to that question lies in this connection that we build with each other, with the spirit of love that surrounds and enfolds us. Doesn't take away pain, doesn't take away fear. But when we breathe and center ourselves in the love that builds our hearts, the love that builds our homes and our communities, we find solace for a time, and perhaps a little bit of hope. Solace and hope, and a little bit of strength to face the days ahead. And so we breathe now quietly into this space which we have created as allies of love. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. It is the new year. It's time for setting intentions and making resolutions. I really do try to avoid those "I need to change everything about myself" resolutions. You know, the ones that basically say who I am right now is an unworthy mess and I'd better snap into shape and completely change myself. If you read my newsletter column this month, you'll know I really don't like those kinds of resolutions, even though the lure of them is really addictive and the pressure to make them at this time of year is everywhere. I prefer to take the opportunity of the new year to reflect on appreciating what is and where I am, being grateful and giving myself love, and imagining how I might live more deeply into that love and into my values in the year ahead. You know, one of the values that is all around us in American culture is this drive for success. Be better, do better, be more successful than your neighbor in business, in love, and in health. And I do, in some way today, want to talk about being successful, about setting goals, making plans, being intentional, but not in the way that you might think or that the rest of the world might appreciate. I want to ask you to take a moment now to think about what it would look like and feel like and taste like and smell like maybe for this community, this religious community, to be really successful this year. It might look like hundreds of people at our services in person and online sharing and inspiration and stories and music. It might look like a balanced budget with plenty of resources to share with our wider community. It may look like beautiful, thriving grounds. It might look like more volunteers to lead and to work than we know what to do with. It might look like a renewed and revived religious education program for families, children, and youth. All of these feel like they would demonstrate a really successful community, and they would definitely do that. And when I think about these things and this community, I notice a whole bunch of other things in my mind vying for attention as well. If you haven't noticed, I'm a bit of a magpie, stealing things, shiny things from here and there and everywhere. And I'm grateful, very grateful, that our religious tradition understands that inspiration and grounding can come from many diverse sources. I don't know if I've had enough to preach about if I had one text to rely on. Today, I have a whole handful of sources that are speaking to me about what a successful community might strive to be, what might be at its heart. I'll start with Bell Hooks, the author and activist who passed away late last year. Hooks is well known and much loved for her activist and feminist writings championing the lives and experiences of women and people of color as a grounding for our ethics and our work in the world. Central to her work was an understanding of the ways in which oppressions like sexism, racism, homophobia come together in our lives and in our systems and create the possibility and sometimes the certainty of oppression, domination. And central to Hooks's thinking and writing is the place of love in our lives. She wrote passionately about a love ethic that put love at the center of activism and of an ethical and meaningful life. I've said this to you before. Hooks grounded her idea of love in her experience and in a definition of love she found in the work of psychologist M. Scott Peck and philosopher Erich Fromm. This was the affirmation that love was the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. For Hooks, this definition and the centrality of love were not just about our intimate relationships, not just about lovers or families. For Hooks, this love ethic was a central force in friendship and in community. Friendships for Hooks were places we could practice and engage in growing love outside of the often less than perfect experiences many of us had in our families of origin. It is, she said, the place in which a great majority of us have our first glimpse of redemptive love and caring community. Because we create and choose these relationships rather than being born into them, she says, in friendship we are able to hear honest, critical feedback. We trust that a true friend desires our good. Friendships that we choose and craft exist for their own sake, of course, and not only to heal past bad experiences, but they are also places where we can grow into, quote, deep and profound connections, unquote, which then can strengthen all of our intimate bonds. In some ways, friendships are a lab in which we can experiment and grow in ways that enrich all of our relational lives. Friendship is central to our lives, even our spiritual lives. And this is not just a modern or a New Age idea. It's grounded in so many of our religious traditions. For example, in many of the discourses and suttas of the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha clearly elevates friendships, especially spiritual and skillful friendships, to central status in our lives. In the Megha Sutra, the Buddha shares with a follower who is frustrated by a lack of spiritual growth that there are 5 things that can help lead one to liberation. One can lead a virtuous life. One can engage in right speech, meaning not ego-centered, kind speech, or honest speech. One can commit one's energy to the spiritual path, and one can build one's understanding of the impermanence which undergirds everything. But the first thing that he lists in that list, and the Buddha did love lists, is having skillful, honorable, or admirable friends. In fact, he continues, having those friends is important and crucial to having those other 4 things. In another place, in one of the longer discourses, he emphasized the qualities of these friends. The friend who is a helper, the friend through thick and thin, the friend who gives good counsel, and the compassionate friend. These 4 are friends indeed. At one point, one of his disciples, Ananda, says at one point having these kinds of friends is half of the holy life. But the Buddha corrects him and asserts that these friendships are actually the whole of the holy life. Our growth and development are impossible without them. At the heart of these friendships, I think, is genuine love, which Bell Hooks says is the foundation of our engagement with ourselves, with family, with friends, with partners, with everyone we choose to love. And this includes community, collections of friends and companions, communities like our covenanted religious community. In community, we put into practice what we know and experience with love at the center of our ethic and relationships. It feels like Hooks and Peck's definition of love, meaning a desire for spiritual growth in ourselves and others, is baked right into our principles, especially when we affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation. As Bob shared earlier, communities to Hook are the places where life is sustained, not just marriages or families or friendships, though those are crucial. Communities are where we live our love ethic most deeply, where we nurture ourselves and others, where we encounter difference and respond with love and curiosity, where we learn to, quote, meet strangers without fear and extend to them the gift of openness and recognition, end quote. That certainly echoes for me what we strive for in our religious community, the work we commit ourselves to doing. And it is work. I hope you know by now that I don't think that work in terms of relationships is a bad word, a 4-letter word, even though it is. Of course there is work. Curiosity and listening and openness and returning in the face of conflict take intention, will, and active engagement. Community is not all sunshine and flowers. It can be hard. We can hurt each other. We can betray each other, damage relationship. But the love that is at the heart of a community allows us, in Hooks' mind, to confront these negative realities in a manner that is life-affirming and life-enhancing. One of the television shows that my husband Mark and I have been enjoying over the past years, especially isolated at home, is called The Expanse. It's a science fiction show based on a series of books, and it tells the story of human civilization spread throughout our solar system, dominated by Earth and Mars and a large population of people called belters, those doing the hard, dangerous work of mining the asteroid belt and outer planetary systems for resources. All of them grappling with new technology and the mysteries in encountering new forms of life and matter. It's an often violent reflection on war, colonialism, curiosity, labor, loyalty, family, and survival. At one point, one of the characters, Amos, is reflecting on what he learned growing up in a less than ideal circumstances. As he grew up, he said, he came to understand that civilization was a thing that helped keep people acting well and constructively with each other. He also grew to understand that human beings are essentially tribal, and that when things are good, the size and scope of those tribes expands. People are tribal, he said. The more settled things are, the bigger the tribes can be. The churn comes, though, and the tribes get small again. And right now, you and I are a tribe of two. His companion at the time, Clarissa, the other person in his tribe, later reflects back to him that maybe changes in the size of the tribe don't have to be reactive. Perhaps, she says, the way to get back to the good, to get out of the churn, to get back into the settled times is to intentionally make the tribe bigger, to include more people without asking them to prove that they are worth anything. I've shared a few times that there is a group of leaders and volunteers in this congregation working with a coach in an experience called Beloved Conversations Among. We're working together to imagine new ways this congregation can live into new realities and a broader vision of who and what we can be, how we can be more inclusive, more welcoming, and provide a place of belonging for even more people, expand our understanding of we and how that we engages with the wider world. In our session with our coach this past week, we shared a video from the Reverend Tandy Rogers. Tandy is a member of our Pacific Western Region staff with the title of Learning Strategist. That's a great title. She has been focused for many years on congregational systems and conflict and change. Tandy invited us to engage together in our group about conflicts we'd experienced in our lives that had gone well, and those that had gone badly, and what, for us, the difference was. She shared her conviction and experience that conflict was, of course, inevitable in community, and that ways of living through and in conflict that ended up being positive, generative was the word she used, were almost always about how we show up for each other, how we are present. When we are present with each other in conflict, and at other times, of course, when we are present in conflict non-reactively, humbly, and ready to be transformed ourselves, conflicts can be powerful, meaningful things that lead all of us to growth and deeper connection instead of driving us apart from each other. She talked several times about what our superpowers were as Unitarian Universalists for engaging in conflict and community life. And one of those superpowers is that we are gathered by covenant and not by convenience or contract. We are gathered by commitments to the ways we are promising to journey together on this religious path. Because she said covenants are made to make us stretch, to make us fail and try again. They exist to allow us to make mistakes and take responsibility for those mistakes rather than bailing out at the first sign of trouble. They allow us to ask for and offer forgiveness and to start again in love. They're not about getting it right the first time, but about striving together. And so we come to our community and our congregational covenant. Jane, I think, is going to post a link to our website in the Zoom chat, and you can find a copy of it there to read later. In this document is one of the places that we put into words how we want to live together, what the things are that we hold in our hearts as we build our community and the relationships within it. I hope you'll take some time and read it closely, come back to it at different times, and different things might jump out at you. Today I'm struck by these sentences in the opening paragraph. This covenant represents the promises we make to ourselves about how we will nurture and support each other within this beloved community. These promises cultivate an environment of compassion, courage, and empathy. Central to How we strive to live together is support and nurturing, compassion, courage, empathy. We write these words down on paper. To help these ideas become reality, we promise that our communication will be mindful and not reactive, that we will be respectful in the face of conflict and not punitive, that we will celebrate our diversity and not merely tolerate it, and that we will actively build our community and not take it or each other for granted. Our covenant upholds curiosity and directness. Its call for growth in ourselves asks us to be humble. And it asks us to promise and act from a place of gratitude and appreciation for our gifts and the gifts of our fellow congregants. It is an invitation. Tandy Rogers shared a practice she had in a congregation where she worked of taking a piece of a covenant each time the staff met and using it as a focus for reflection. How are we living into this part of our promises? What can we celebrate? Where might we focus some more attention? You might choose this year as one of your resolutions or intentions to keep our covenant handy, to take a bit of it every once in a while and wonder to yourself, or in conversation with your partner or some fellow congregants or your cat, how are we living into this part of our promises? What can we celebrate? Where might we focus some more attention? One of the ways this congregation has focused a little more attention on the covenant in the creation of a right relations policy. As part of their work together last year, the Committee on Ministry and Reverend Barbara developed this right relations policy, which your board approved in May. You can find this on our website as well. I think there will also be a link in the Zoom chat. Thank you, Jane. Thank you today, Jane, and for every week being there in Zoom and helping our folks stay connected. This policy aims to make the living of our covenant together more concrete and offers some more specific practices. The policy is there to help us understand and act on the idea that our covenant is not just a static document written out and then placed on the shelf. That living together in right relationship is a practice, sometimes a messy practice as well as an idea. We are intending to do important and often difficult work together as a congregation, and laying out how we want to be together in that work is an important commitment. As the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert, our policy says, as we strive to move toward widening the circle to embracing diversity, strengthening a culture of right relations is essential. This policy also includes references to our Committee on Ministry. This committee is a group of people chosen by your board and your minister to work with the minister to pay attention to our ministry together overall, and specifically to keep focus on our congregational covenant and right relations. How are we living into our promises? What can we celebrate? Where might we focus some more attention? The right relation policy also outlines some of the scope of the Committee on Ministry's work more specifically. It says the Committee on Ministry may become involved in helping mediate issues and behaviors that are disrupting right relations in the community and its related activities. Examples of issues triggering Committee on Ministry involvement include interpersonal conflict that inhibits church operations or is maligning to UUCOD members, friends, and staff. Members of the Committee on Ministry may be engaged to help congregants think through next steps in rebuilding right relations with UUCOD members, friends, and staff. Now, the COM is not meant to serve as a counselor, though, provide pastoral care, or participate in resolving routine differences of opinion. It's there to help rebuild connection. Committees on ministry are generally recreated, repeopled when a new minister begins their service with a congregation, and this is true for us. And so starting this month, your committee on ministry, our committee on ministry, is Jane Zahn, Joaquin Galliano, and Walter Gendel. I hope you'll join us this year and take some time to keep our covenant and right relations at the center of our intention as we do the work of building the beloved community. The title of my sermon today, "We Are How We Treat Each Other When the Day is Done," comes from a song by a group called the Alternate Roots. And the chorus is, "We are peace, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are love, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. In the face of everything in the world, all of our work, all of those things that we strive to do, how we treat each other in our intimate relationships, in our friendships, in our community, are central to who we are and who we can be in the world. And our covenants, our policies that talk about that are not a set of rules. They are an invitation to pay attention, an invitation to understand that we increase our impact and effectiveness in our lives and communities when we expand the we and don't worry about who is worthy. An invitation to stretch ourselves and be curious. They are an invitation to hold spiritual growth in ourselves and others as a central focus. They are an invitation to reflect on the ways that we are being skillful and honorable friends to one another. And they are at heart an invitation to choose love in each and every moment. May that be our choice in each and every moment. May it be so. We share now in our closing hymn, Answering the Call of Love.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call to love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call to love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call to love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call to love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call to love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call to love. We are answering the call to love.
Sorry, folks. This is a live service here in the congregation here today. Let's extinguish the chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I hope that you'll hang around a little while longer, friends, after Malcolm's postlude and join the after-service conversation and connection on Zoom. You don't need to go anywhere, just take a breath and then enjoy each other's company. We close today with these words from the Reverend Cynthia Landrum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues until we are together again. Be strong, be well, be true, be loving. Go in peace, dear ones, to love and serve the world.